here we are. Hello, good people, good and faithful and people and friends. We're going to continue today with the Jewish Golden Age, the poetry of it, that is. And this is Samuel haNagid and Solomon or Shlomo Ibn Gabirol. It's interesting about Ibn Gabirol. You write it in Hebrew, Aleph Beit Nun, and a lot of Israelis don't know Ibn. They call it Even Gabirol, so the stone of Gabirol. So I don't know if you're going to. There's quite a real chance that this will take us more than one session, and so be it. It'll nice because different from my classes in Hunter, when I have just an allocated time to cover one topic. Here we can take our time. If it takes longer, we'll do it in 2 times. So we don't have to rush. We can go deeper into segues, and that's nice, I think. Now let's start with something else. I always like to present a historical background. This was 720. This was the height of the Umayyad Caliphate. Umayyad Caliphate was the only caliphate that was around, and was in the very early years of Islam. At its height, after the Umayyads conquered Spain and also, of course, the Middle East and the Persian Empire and North Africa, everything. Then it fell apart. It was replaced by the Abbasid Caliphate, but the Umayyads remained just in Iberia. So this is the biggest, just looking at Iberia meaning Spain and Portugal nowadays. This is the height, the biggest territory that they had. So then we move forward. It turned into the Emirate of Cordoba. And this is, well, almost 200 years later. You see, it's a lot more red in the north. That means Christians have reconquered quite a bit in the north, and there's a number of states here. So Galicia, Leon, Navarro, or Navarre in English, and the Spanish March, or Francia. I'm not 100% sure who ruled there, and was this a real kingdom or something else. But this was the time of Abdurrahman III, and we spoke about him. He was very important caliph, and during his time, the height, I would say, the height of for Jews, the golden age of Judaism under Abdurrahman III and his son. This is when Chazai ibn Shaprut and a lot of our other heroes came to the scene. We move forward, and then Abdurrahman the third, same place, but it's changed back from being an emirate to a caliphate. It's just a matter of time. Now, on the right, you see the people who lived in that time. So Chazai ibn Shaprut lived here, Menachem ben Saruq lived here, Dunash ibn Labrat lived in this period. We spoke about them. A bit later, we have Joseph Abitur, he's a bit younger. And okay, so we go. This is now the caliphate falls apart. This is 999. This is after Abdurrahman III's son, Al-Hakam II. See the Al-Mansur, to be honest, I think, not sure if this map is totally accurate because under Al-Mansur, a lot of the north was conquered again by the Muslims, so the red would have been a bit smaller in comparison to the previous one. But this is when Samuel the Nagid, Shmuel haNagid lived. He was still young, but he's one of our main characters of today. Go down again. After Al-Mansur, there's a civil war, and you see that the caliphate has lost territory. So the caliphate is still there, Caliphate of Cordoba, but now you have little mini states. Those are called taifas.
This question. I have a question about the first of the slides or the maps at
I'll go back.
20.
Yeah,
Yes. My question here is the invaders, or whatever you want to call them,
yeah.
this is the very, very, very beginning of Islam. I mean, Islam is like
Well, no, that
dec-
Islam is the late 600s, but yeah, it's early.
it's very late. It's decades old.
Yeah,
So when they came, were they coming as Muslims or
yeah.
simply as Middle Easterners?
No, absolutely as Muslims. Yeah.
Oh, so Islam took hold very quickly. I mean, for a religion.
Islam formed all kind of competing tribes in Arabia that would, for centuries, just compete with each other as tribes and little kingdoms do, united under Islam. And so they bundled their strength outward, and then they conquered in no time the Middle East, Persian Empire, little big parts of the Byzantine Empire, North Africa, and almost entirely Spain. They went actually into to France, but didn't hold on to that much long. But they were actually halfway France also, and were was this a bit of a dispute? Were they beaten back, or was it just raids? And they weren't really ready to actually conquer it. But no, this was early in. But you are to some extent, I think, right in your question that yes, there was Islam. They were reciting Quran. They were doing all kind of things. They believed in Muhammad and all, but Islam wasn't really crystallized. It wasn't really finalized in its theology yet, and a lot of things were still in flux of what Islam actually was. They started conquering, and then later the fight is maybe not. Yeah, it could be. There was also fights, but so who's determining what the theology and of Islam is, and what the Islamic law should be, etc., etc. So that was still in flux, and therefore it's not so strange that in the period that we were talking about, Abdurrahman and Al Hakam, remember that they were doing things that do not fit in Islam as we know it now. That we spoke about male harems,
Even
we
though
spoke
it
about
was in
wine and
flux,
stuff. Sorry?
even though it was in flux for the next couple of hundred years, then
Yeah.
it was so unifying that they could invade Europe like that and conquer not
Yeah.
only Europe but a lot of the Middle East.
Now, all of the Middle East, I would say, and North Africa.
It's
Uh,
extraordinary, but without you a stable unifying ideology,
yeah,
which is
but
also
soon enough they
interesting.
start fighting among each other also about who's the appropriate leaders who are entitled to take over leadership, and also about a fight over the theology ended up in the split between Sunnis and Shia. So that's a lot about theology and about leadership, both, yeah.
What was their stated motivation for this tremendous campaign then?
Once again, they were always probably warlike, but they, instead of fighting each other, they start joining, and it's much more profitable to join. So you can actually conquer entire capitals instead of just a little caravan here and there. Now they were much more successful. So
uh,
a lot of these tribes that were so a lot of these campaigns were, let's say, done by a tribe or by a cooperation of different tribes.
Yeah.
So tribes that used to live somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula now ended up, let's say, in Iraq or
Yeah.
in Morocco, and a lot of these local dialects that you have are reflections of dialects in
Yeah.
that are still are in no, but used to be in the Arabic Peninsula. But then there were also centers of military centers where there's mixtures of tribes. So linguistically, that is all very interesting too. But yeah.
If I may,
fascinating.
if I may, the conquest of the Middle East was made much easier because Byzantines and Persians were
Yeah.
having hundreds of years of fighting. And when the Arabs came, they conquered, they said, become Muslim or pay a tax. And it was relatively easy to advance in this region.
Yeah.
While conquering North Africa, they were blocked 30 years by a Jewish queen called Al Kahina. That was the longest time to conquer a place that was in North Africa. Then the Jews helped the Muslims conquer Spain.
Perhaps, right. I mean, it's not 100% sure, but yes.
I've written a lot of that, and
Yeah.
I'll
But
send it.
Kahina, yeah. So yeah, the Persians and the Byzantines had worn each other out in constant war for many years. So they were depleted, and also there's the techniques, the fighting techniques of the Arabs. They I don't know if I spoke about it, but I think I might have, but it's okay to repeat. These people had the camels, and you can sit on a camel and tell the camel which direction to go. You put it, and it just keeps walking even if you fall asleep. People would sleep on their camel during the night, wake up rested, and they would have traversed a long period of time, be early in the morning at the gates of a city that had never expected them because they weren't near before the evening, and then other armies would all be marching, but they moved really fast because of this technique, so to say. Yeah, strategy. Yeah, there's a lot about this, but in any case, is this sufficient for now, Joelle?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. So we'll go back. My pleasure. Here, I found a little video that I worked on. What I did put on is you see from the beginning to the end of Islam in Spain, and what I put over it was the names of the people in Jewish history that lived at that time. So if they lived in the place itself, you see it's in black, white on black. But if they live somewhere else, it has another color. In any case, let's watch this video, if with your permission. Here we go. And that was it.
That was fascinating.
Thank you. Margot?
Oh,
Yeah, first of all, that was a great video. Thank you. It made it very real in a certain way. Let me ask you a question that is going to seem very naive, and you should have known the answer, kind of a thing. But when did expansion and conquering move to being one under the sanction of a religion rather than of a state? Because, like, for example, when we think of Alexander the Great, we're not thinking of a religion propelling him forth. So when did it happen, and why did it happen as a religion rather than these leaders, rulers, kings, or what have you?
Well, that's a good question. It's a very good question. That probably requires a bit of study, but I would say that the Romans, when they became identified with Christianity, the distinction between being Roman and being a Christian, and also the Eastern Church under the Byzantines, that distinction becomes blurred. But that was not probably that change in identification is probably not just a something that happens just in one. It's probably more like a sliding process. But at a certain point, when there is a war, it is against, let's say, the Byzantines, against the Slavic nations, people, tribes in the north who were pagan. It's seen, of course, it's the state against roaming bands, but it's also the Christians against the pagans. These things are perhaps not even distinguished from each other. Now, I would say that in the Arabic conquests, it is probably also a state thing, because Islam claims to be not just a religion but also a state in a way, even though the state in our days is falling apart. But in theory, there should be a caliphate, and that's what ISIS built on, right? Like a caliphate should return that unites all Muslims. But soon enough, after the Umayyads, that fell apart. But it was still a unity of Arab. Let's say you could still, soon enough, as you see here in the map, at a certain point you have competing Muslim mini-states. And so they're all Muslim, but they're still fighting for power. So that is more like a theoretical thing, a Muslim against a non-Muslim, but in practice, it's groups and factions against each other. So the theory is always different from the practice. But that there would be, yeah, in the time of Muhammad, that for sure the distinction isn't there, because he's a statesman and he was a prophet or a spiritual leader. So it's hard to distinguish the two. Just even, let's say, in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, that it's not so relevant, so accurate anymore. But when we grew up, it was the Protestants against the Catholics, but it's also the pro-British against the pro-Irish independence. So it's not just a religious thing. It's more like, and that's probably always the case. Let me continue. So I ended last class with the message that after Al-Hakam II, that the Al-Mansur took over, and that there was a civil war from different groups against each other. So that civil war brought a lot of chaos, like civil wars do. Cordoba eventually was sacked. That great shining example of culture destroyed. And the Ibn Gabirol family, we're talking about Ibn Gabirol family here, that lived in Cordoba and was quite wealthy there, moved south to Malaga, and you see here on the map where that is, Malaga by the sea. So and so the heat of the was Cordoba. Now here you see already Cordoba is a tiny mini state. It's not this big thing anymore. So you have here all kind of mini states. You see, I know it is a Spanish map, so it's forgive me for that. The north, the dark orange, those it says reinos y condados cristianos, which means Christian kingdoms and other territories. I guess that's what it means. That is just seen as one, but in fact, there are a few different states. It just on the map is one. The Muslim area is divided in states. See, now they're color coded, and I wrote this here on the right in English. And let me express. So initially, Spain was conquered by Arabic forces. Arabic forces. Now there are these little mini states are called taifas. It's from an Arabic word, ta'ifa, which means party. Taifas so means parties or sections or factions that fight each other. But they're really little mini fiefdoms or kingdoms. Not fiefdoms, kingdoms. So there's an Arabic taifas. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5. That's all that is under Arab nations. Then we have Berber taifas. Those are the old Berbers. So soon enough in North Africa, when Muslims conquered North Africa, the original people who lived there, the tribes lived there, were Berbers, and they as David brought out, we know that some of them were Jewish, others were Christian, others were probably pagan, but the vast majority converted to Islam and then started fighting, joining the fight with the Arabs, and a lot of it, they played a big role. Now, these blue territories are run by, let's say, kingdoms, for a better word, or sultanates, if you like, or emirates, that were tribes that had been in Spain for centuries already. So let's say older Berber taifas. Yeah, so Toledo is the biggest one here. At this point, Toledo is the biggest taifa. Then you have newer Berbers, naturally in the south, because they come from the south, from North Africa. They cross usually here at Gibraltar, and they settle here. So those are more recently arrived Berbers that conquered these parts in the south. What are I'm going to do the Slavic ones last. Muladi taifas. Those are the little pink ones here. What is a Muladi? Muladis are Spaniards that converted to Islam. So Muslim Spaniards. Those people have an Arabic style culture. They practice Islam, but they are Spanish and they speak Spanish. At this time, this is really interesting for those nuts like me who are so interested in language and cannot help themselves but talk about it and bring it up. But at this time, there is this is called Mozarabic, which is actually it is a type of Spanish that is written with Arabic letters, and there are definitely texts that are preserved of an old type of Spanish. It has quite a few Arabic words, but then Spanish, of course, still has Arabic words, but there used to be more, for sure, than now, but still has it. But those are, so Muslim Spaniards, basically. And then finally, Slavic taifas. Okay.
One more question?
Yes, yeah.
This is fascinating stuff. So these people were writing Spanish in Arabic script.
Yes.
And at the same time, this is the rise of Ladino, where people were writing Spanish in Hebrew.
Oh, that's a lot later. That's a lot later.
It's later? The Jews didn't speak. There were no Jews here.
No,
yet.
because look, you cannot speak a language that is almost the same as what everybody else speaks. No, Ladino is, and Alicia is more of an expert than I am. But as far as I understand, it's like with Yiddish. When did Yiddish start? Although, of course, it's not really comparable. But Yiddish starts really after the Jews leave Germany, because they speak German. They keep speaking German, but they're not connected to other Germans, and their language starts leading its own life, and then going away from the German, and they have their own lingo, and they have some Slavic words, and then they have. But Ladino is really Spanish spoken outside of Spain, because it's a bit different here and there. But if any, even today, if a Ladino speaker goes to South America or to Spain, it's so the same that in no time they speak Spanish. You cannot have such a language that is so similar to Spanish in the middle of Spain. Am I correct, Alicia?
Ladino actually had a different meaning than what it was really originally. Well, the language that was spoken in early Middle Ages in Spain was a kind of a Latin derivative from Latin, and it was called Latino or Ladino. Now, when the rabbi wanted to translate the scripture into the spoken language, they called it Aladinar. Let's do it in Ladino, in the language that was spoken in Spain. So actually, the original Ladino is
Spanish.
Are the the translation of the scripture into the spoken language that was derivative from Latin. Now, after the expulsion from Spain, the Jews continued to speak that language. It was really medieval Spanish. Whenever they wanted to speak about terminology that came from, our religious religion or culture, they kept the words in Hebrew or in Aramaic. This was the real Ladino. Now, from the 70th, the languages, the Judeo-Spanish that were spoken in Eastern Mediterranean or Morocco had different names. In Eastern Mediterranean, they were called Judesmo or Spaniolit or Judeo, never Ladino. Ladino was assigned only for the literature language.
Yeah.
Now it evolved, and now indeed now they call it Ladino, but it's not the original Ladino.
Right, and
now
Ladino,
whatever they speak now is like equivalent to the Yiddish, that is based on medieval Spanish with words taken from the surrounding culture.
Yeah, like Turkish, a little here and there.
Right. Or in Morocco.
Yeah, Arabic words. And Ladino is always, that is true, Joel, I think, originally always written with Hebrew scripts. Correct?
Indeed.
Because everybody go to school, you go to religious school, you learn the alphabet, that's what you use. And like Muslims, they learn Arabic. They go to Quran school, learn Arabic. So that's why in Urdu, they when they started writing, or in Persian, their language, they knew the Arabic alphabet. So that's why all these countries where Islam settles, they often revert to the Arabic alphabet, and that's why Yiddish was originally also just local medieval German with Hebrew letters. You can call that Yiddish, but it wasn't really a different language in the beginning, right? So
actually, the translation of the word Yiddish is Jewish.
Jewish,
just like Judeo was Jewish.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, very nice. Now, how come Slavic taifas? Well, this is because that was in the Arabic culture, and I think that was in Christian Spain also. There was a thriving slave market, a slave trade going on, and traditionally, eventually it became African slaves, but initially most slaves were Slavic people, mostly Christians. Even Byzantine Christians also, when they conquered the Russians, or whatever you call Proto-Russians or Polish, or those were pagans, And so they conquered, then they take them as slaves, and they sell them, and they trade them, and they ship them, and they make profit from them. And that's why we have the word slave that comes from Slavic. It's the same word. Why? And you can call them servants, but Serbian and servant is also the same word.
I believe it's the Vikings who conquered part of Eastern Europe and traded the slaves.
Sorry, say it again.
The Vikings, the Viking, from Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Not only England and Normandy, but also part of Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they traded slaves, most of them.
They did a lot of slaves. Yeah. Also, they took Germanic slaves. They took slaves from everywhere. But they were pagans, so they took Christians as slaves, and anyone who was not Slavic. Yeah, right. And they settled in Russia. So Moscow was founded by and other cities. I think St. Petersburg by Vikings, and for many generations, the czars were all descendants of Vikings. All right. Okay. Each of these new mini-states, these taifas, tried to copy the glorious example of what the Caliphate of Cordoba once had been. Many of them appointed Jews in high positions, just as had happened in Cordoba. Why did they do that? Well, maybe you don't want a Christian because he might spy for the north, for the Christian kingdoms. You might not want a Muslim because he might spy for the other Muslim states, or he might get close to the throne and he might want to kill you and take over your kingdom. But the Jews could never do that. If a Jew would take over the kingdom, they had no huge multitude of people that would support him. They would be finished off. A Jew would never even contemplate trying to take over a state. So they were probably the most. They had the highest chance to be loyal to the ruler. So Jews would be the people of choice, even though it goes against the Pact of Omar. But the Pact of Omar was not always applied, as we saw with Hazai ibn Shaprut. Now we're going to Granada, the Taifa of Granada. That's where today's story happens. The Taifa of Granada was ruled by one of these new Berber tribes, and the Berber emir called Habus al-Muzaffar. That was his name. He had a prime minister, and that was Samuel ibn Nagrilla, but we know him mostly as Shemuel haNagid. The Nagid means the prince, the leader. Nagid is the leader of the Jewish community. So he was not just. And how did Samuel attain this position? Let's look. Alicia, we haven't heard you for a long time. Today we heard you a bit, but maybe you want to read something for us.
Samuel started as a shopkeeper in Cordova. He fled from there during the Civil War and then opened up shop in Granada. Samuel was quite learned. Among other things, he had studied Talmud and grammar, and he was fluent in Arabic and Hebrew. Samuel was also an accomplished poet.
Yeah, so he started as a selling spices. Mm-hmm.
Samuel's career was nothing short of remarkable. It started with delivering herbs and spices to the palace, then writing letters of behalf of the emir, who was Berber and not a native speaker of Arabic. Samuel became the emir's advisor, next to his tax collector, and finally his first minister.
Yeah, so a bit similar. It started with Hazai ibn Shaprut, had been the doctor. This was the grocerer, yeah, who became first minister. Now we know with Hazai ibn Shaprut, he became the first minister, but not with the title, because Abdurrahman III wanted to at least give the impression that he was not appointing Jews in high places, as that is forbidden under the Pact of Omar. But Habus didn't have any qualms about it. He actually made him first minister. Not only that,
Samuel even became the head of the emir's army. a Jew in command of a Muslim army.
According to the Pact of Omar, a Jew not only cannot be appointed above Muslims, he also cannot bear weapons, cannot ride horses. All these things he had to do in order to be commander of a Muslim army. Can you believe a Jew commanding a Muslim army? So he had to ride horses, he had to lead the whole army, all these things. Yeah.
In addition, Samuel ibn Agrila became the head of the Jewish community, the Nagid, and promoted Jewish learning very much like Hasdai ibn Shaprut had done before him.
Yeah,
Could
what
you
a
remind
story.
us when this is? Could you remind us of the years of this?
Around let's say the year 1000 is probably a good guess. Is that close enough? We're gonna probably see.
Yeah. I just needed sort of to get oriented.
Close to that. Alicia?
To continue. Under his lead, the Talmud Academy in Granada flourished and attracted students from far and wide. One of the students there was Rabbi Maimon ben Yosef, Maimonides' father. Samuel haNagid himself wrote on Talmud and on Jewish law and as well.
Yeah, it was a remarkable person. So yes, he was a patron of Talmud Academy, where indirectly we benefit from if we study Maimonides, the Rambam. So you see, every time we study something, it connects us to another chapter in Jewish history. It's like from Saadia Gaon, we went to Dunash ibn Labrat, we went to the Al-Hakam II period, the Civil War. Now we're here, and we already have a bridge to Maimonides. Okay, now let's do, so it is a little poem by Samuel haNagid. I'm going to ask perhaps Herb, would you like, let's Herb.
One who works to buy himself books while his heart inside is vain or corrupt, resembles a cripple who draws on the wall 100 legs, then can't get up.
Yeah. So, books were status symbol, even more than now. I mean, some people might still have, I hear that some people buy books just for staging, and they specialize in the books with a specific color because it looks good. But at the other end,
they buy it by the pound.
By the pound, right? Amazing, yeah. So,
Great Gatsby.
What is that?
Great Gatsby's party.
Oh, really? Wow. I have to see that movie. I've never seen it, I guess.
Oh, you have to read the book.
It must
the
have
book is
been
probably
very,
better, yeah.
It must have been very, very precious because there
Yes,
was no
exactly.
printing press yet.
Because everything is written by hand. So if you have a book, you have to commission somebody to write it. He might take 3 months. You have to pay a salary for 3 months. I mean, books are very precious. So if you have a books, it's like, whoa, you are quite something. Even though some people might never read it, or they might read it, but they might not become more evolved people. That's what books are for, people, to become more learned, more evolved, more. Hopefully, you read books with values and not trash, because there's another trash. You can watch television for trash. You don't need to buy books for that. And television is now on the computer free. Don't spend your time on your money on trash books. It's not, but books that elevate you. And if you don't internalize them, it is like a cripple who has tons of legs on the wall, but he still cannot walk. Now, Herb, you're going to like this one. This is about the house of learning. It's about the yeshiva. Now, we know that Samuel ibn Agrila was supporting the Talmud academies, but he also is critical of what's going on there. This is 2 slides. We'll do both slides. Herb.
Could time turn against the scholars, or have they turned against the Torah and bequeathed it to stuffed old fools in robes? One needs, it seems, only fringes, a turban, and a beard to head the academy now. This is so well said. My brother, remember the day we passed the house of prayer on the Day of Willows, and that's what do you call it? The Hoshana Rabbah, the
Yeah.
Day of Willows, and heard up close a donkey bray, and crows cry, and lo,
A donkey
and
brain like,
yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Learning in the Beth Medrash. And I asked, is the Lord's house now a dairy farm? This is a sin and disgrace. And they told me, there are no fatlings or mules in the house of the Lord. They're studying Talmud. Then I answered, from Scripture, they've changed the instructions and Torah. And as for me, where can I turn? So we walked on in anger into the house of God. We couldn't help find it. And we saw the teacher and students bobbing their heads like fronds, like Lulovim, as their mouths abused the names of the great. The teacher expounded at length, preying on every sound they made. And I sat there enraged at the sight, and my soul grew sad. I asked the good teacher after his health, but he answered me as a man of strife. And he started reciting the 100 blessings in a coarse voice, like an army of horde. And he thanked the Lord. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. And he made him a man and not a woman. And I told him, you flaunt your phallic soul, but the Lord will prove you hollow.
That is something, huh?
It can be written for today very well. Exactly.
The remarkable thing is, this is a poem by Samuel haNagid, who actually was supporting Talmud studies, but at a certain way. He probably wanted it to be dignified and more scholarly, and so he was criticizing what was going on in these.
It's like in Israel today. You have Benjamin Netanyahu, who supports the yeshivas, who couldn't care less about them. It's all a political idea. And the yeshivas take in everybody, even those who can't even read Hebrew, just so that they have the numbers, and they collect money from the state. It goes on to this very day.
Yeah, that's why I don't care much about how many people show up for this class, because I don't get paid anyway. Okay, you can do one more just to to get over the shock of the Talmud. Okay.
No, I'm not shocked. I love it.
Yeah, I know.
If you leave a long-loved friend today in disgust, you will be like a man destroying a building. Then that took him a year to raise from the dust. Yes, sirree.
Isn't that something, huh?
Yes, that's so true.
So a friendship takes years to build, and then you...
And it's destroyed like a building. Bingo. One shot.
Yeah. I'm going to Joel.
It's the heart that discerns between evil and good. So work to develop your heart. How many are there who heartlessly destroy and think their destruction is a start?
Yeah, that's another one. People think, everything is rotten. We got to just destroy it until the ground and then build up something new. And that is a fatal mistake. And a lot of movements. You see the bomb that is Palmyra. That is what ISIS did with destroying old stuff because they wanted to build an Islamic state. Look where they are now, right? Everything that breaks out of anger or is horrible. This is a really nice one, Joel. You'll love this one.
Luxuries ease, but when trouble comes, people are plagued for the wealth they've accrued. The peacock's tail is spectacular, but it weighs him down on the days he's pursued.
Yeah.
Charming.
So our wealth becomes an obstacle in being flexible. Let's say we want to move to another. When Jews had to move before the Nazis came, those people with a lot of wealth might have thought, "Oh, can I leave this all behind?" Right? So people who have just enough to move but not much to lose, they will be flexible, and so it's something to be aware of. Let's go. Let's continue, Joelle.
Come up and see where goats now camp, the court of the patron you used to frequent. There remains neither door nor threshold within it, nor a dog to water the walls with its scent.
Yeah, that means wealth perishes. These people, everybody would come to this person. He would support you. He would, and you would kiss his hand, and now they're gone. Now he has this one about war. I think this is a really cool one, Joel.
The first war resembles a beautiful girl with whom we all flirt and believe. But later, it's more a repulsive old whore whose colors are bitter and grieve.
In the days, not so long ago, people were, a lot of upbringing was martial arts. People would train with swords, how to martial arts. For a knight, for instance, you'd have to learn all the moves with your sword, and the one of the things that were drilled in, the values were bravery, and to be brave and a hero. That was what people dreamt of. So then when the First World War came, and it had been a war for a long time, people went into the war singing and cheering. It's like, yay, finally we can be men. But that turned out a big disaster. So people thought, the first time they go to war, they think, oh, I can prove my bravery, my manlyhood, this and that. But then when they experience it, it's really an ugly thing that they rather had avoided. Now, because of communication and imagery we see, hopefully that's not as prevalent anymore. I don't think so. In some cultures, perhaps. Now, this is, as we know, he was the commander of the army. And here is a poem that he wrote on one of his raids. Can we read this one, Joelle?
I quartered the troops for the night in a fortress which soldiers destroyed long ago, and they fell asleep at its walls and foundations while its masters were sleeping below. I wondered what had become of the people who dwelled here before that disaster. Where were the builders and soldiers, the wealthy and the poor, the slaves and their masters, the bereaved and the women in labor, the sons and their fathers, the mourners and grooms? Great nations had come and gone in succession in the course of years and moons. They settled across the face of the earth, but rest in the heart of the ground. Their magnificent palaces turned into tombs, their pleasant courts into a mound. And if they could lift their heads and emerge, they'd take our lives, our goods, and our worth. In truth, my soul, in truth, and quite soon, I'll be just like them and sleep in the earth.
Yep.
Quite a
So he saw a
poem.
lot of death, and so he, yeah. Now there is one about a person's life. I don't know if anyone recognizes this person. No, it's not recognizable, but that's me. Okay. Margot, would you like to read this? It's 3 slides.
A person's life. A child at 1 or 2 crawls like a snake on the floor, and at 10 he skips to his father like a kid among goats on the hills. At 20, love in his heart takes hold, and he struts for girls. He basks in the glories of youth for his pride and power at 30. Reaching 40, he ripens and joins the elders, his friends. At 50, the sleep of his youth in whiteness is brought to an end. The terrors of time assault him when a man passes 60 in years. Till 70, then he sighs with age, and he seems to be saintly.
That's my father, by the way, the top.
Oh, okay.
And the bottom is me, but it's like a program that makes you look old. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. And you did it on yourself or on your father?
Yeah, that was on me. I hope to look like that when I'm 100. Okay. But
Wow.
Suzanne doesn't look forward to it.
Time surrounds him at 80, trapped in the fowler's snare, and at 90 he can't distinguish between the plow and the scythe. At 100, who gets to be 100? Men in amazement approach him. When he dies, he lies with maggots repulsive to one and all. So it's right that I wax melancholic from time to time in my soul.
Yeah, we do this one too. I want to finish Samuel the Nagid if we can, and then we'll go to Ibn Gabirol next week. Yes.
Man runs towards the grave. Man runs towards the grave, and rivers hasten to the great deep. The end of all living is their death, and the palace in time becomes a heap. Nothing is further than the day gone by, and nothing nearer than the day to come, and both are far, far away from the man hidden in the heart of the two.
Oh. Now, I think, yes, there's only one more slide. This is what Samuel the Nagid wrote on the death of his brother. And we'll end with this one.
A day ago, I buried you. Lo, I return with my soul in torment. May God have mercy upon you, my brother. A day ago, I buried you, but even now my complaint is bitter. Greetings I bring you. Do you not hear when I call to you with all my might? Answer me. Do you not recognize the response of my crying lament? Are your bones starting to wither and your teeth loosening in your jaw? Has your moistness fled in the night, even as mine is running in my ears, in my tears? Oh, firstborn of my father, I have left you a security in the hand of my Creator, whose assurance I trust that you will go in peace.
So he's a lot occupied, it seems to me, with death and with values of friendship, of destruction, and he also we saw some homoerotic poetry last week that he wrote also, by the way. I guess he hung out with men. That's what happens in the army, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so next week we will go to Ibn Gabirol. Yeah, is there anybody who wants to say something about this class before we end it, or have a question?
I love it. You're doing a great job, Shimon.
Thanks. It's really powerful, right? Some of these, yeah.
This is a wonderful way to start the week. Thank you so much for such beautiful classes and such a fascinating study.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to hear.